Within this TV buying season, a lot of people are going to make some very tough choices regarding the LG C2 or the LG G2. And today I have them head to head for you, and I want to talk about the differences and everything that goes along with that, not just picture quality, but features as well. Both of these TVs are on sale right now at Black Friday prices, and if you're interested in these TVs, I will have the affiliate links in the description below. If you click them before you buy, it helps out the channel, so I thank you so much for doing that. Okay, so let's start off by talking about the price difference. Right now, you're looking at $400 to $800 price difference depending on the size that you're getting. For some of you, that may be worth it depending on what you're getting. That goes into the whole value proposition that I want to talk about with the G2. So something unique about the G2 is that it does come with its own mount. So if you're planning on mounting this on the wall, you don't have to get any extra wall mount. You have a good wall mount with the TV in the G2. So that eliminates some price cost when you're thinking about getting a C2. And it also comes with a 5-year panel warranty, which if you bought that separately, it probably would equal out to the same cost if you bought the TV and a mount separately. So if you're planning on mounting the TV and buying a warranty, it may be smarter to go with the G2. Now, when we're thinking about the G2 and the C2, it has to be said that in reality, the differences between these two TVs for picture quality, it is pretty much the same. There's going to be aspects where you see the G2 gets brighter than the C2 in certain highlights, and some of the white highlights tend to be brighter on the G2. And that does stick out when they are side by side. I think though, if they weren't side by side and you saw a G2 in one room and then saw a C2 in the other room, you wouldn't really be able to appreciate the differences that you saw. So really, the G2 and the C2 are closer than a lot of people think. Much like the A80J to the A90J last year, the differences are going to be very minimal and when you see them. But when you do see them, you will appreciate them if it is side by side. Now, that said, the G2 is a very capable TV, and it did trade blows with the S95B when it was side by side. On the other hand, the C2 didn't do as good next to the S95B. So I think that says a lot for the G2 and what it is capable of, that it can compete with the QD OLED in regular content for a lot of these highlights. So the biggest difference between the LG G2 and the C2 is that the G2 has the brightness booster max technology built into it, which is their heat dissipation technology that they put into the TV. The C2 does not have this, but they do have brightness booster, just not the max version, and really that just means that it doesn't have the heat sink, so I wouldn't pay too much attention to those marketing words. In reality, what you see is that the G2 can get brighter in those small highlights, and it's not something that is super significant in regular content, but it is pretty cool when you see it side by side. The G2 does appear brighter for those small highlights. I will say this only really makes a difference in certain HDR content that is really meant to push the limits. In most regular content, I don't think there is a huge difference between the G2 and the C2. But when those differences do occur, it is nice to see, much like the A90J next to the A80J. I was really kind of just comparing it to that the whole entire time. But like I said, I do think the C2 jump to the G2 is bigger than the A80J jump to the A90J in terms of the visual impact that it presents to you. Okay, now let's get into gaming. So gaming as a whole is going to be a very similar experience on both TVs. In HDR using HGIG, the G2 is capable of getting a little bit brighter, but the differences in reality isn't that big. And really, I think the G2 and the C2 are very similar in gaming. Again, the things that I said about outside of game mode really do apply to inside of game mode as well. You will notice the G2 has the brighter highlights than the C2 when they are side by side. I do think it's less significant in game mode compared to outside of game mode, but if you're really not sure which TV to get and you are okay with spending the extra money, just get the G2. It will give you an overall better gaming experience, and those highlights really do stick out in some of these games. Now, if you're talking about just a good gaming TV all around, I still don't think it's the best gaming TV you can get, unless of course you're talking about getting game mode picture accuracy. If that's what you care about, then the G2 is probably going to be the best gaming TV for you. But those of you that want picture pop and you're not really concerned too much about accuracy in game mode, the S95B is going to be the better choice. But that's just the best gaming TV in my eyes. I still think these are really great gaming TVs, and if you are choosing between these two LG TVs, you can't really go wrong, but I would give the G2 the advantage over the C2 if you're talking about gaming specifically. One of the big differences that I noticed with the LG C2 compared to the G2 is that the G2 could get brighter in SDR for game mode. Even in full screen brightness, I did see a difference from SDR game mode in the C2 and the G2. Games just looked brighter on the G2 when they were in SDR. Like I mentioned, when they're in HDR, you don't really see this difference, only in the highlights. So yeah, SDR is something that I was let down on in the C2 and the C1 last year, but the G2 does make up a little bit of ground there, and the SDR game mode's not that bad. It still does fall short of some of the other game modes in SDR from competitors, but it is getting better, and I do like what I see out of the G2, and I could probably get away with SDR on this TV. So as a whole, what does it come down to when you're talking about the C2 and the G2? I think for people that are looking at a TV that they're going to mount, they should look at the G2 because it is a really good solution for that. Factor in if they want to have some panel protection with a warranty, then they should definitely look at the G2. I think that this is a really good solution if those things are on your list. Now, if you're looking at just keeping it on a stand and you really weren't considering getting a warranty, just go ahead and get the C2. That's going to be a better value for you at the end of the day, and the differences aren't that huge, and you really won't know what you're missing because both TVs are excellent. So I think that those people that are considering that option definitely should go with the C2 over the G2. Of course, for the people that money is no object, get the G2 because it is the better TV overall, and I do think that difference at the end of the day might be worth it for those type of people. Because, yeah, the G2 is pretty fantastic in its build quality, in its performance, and all of the above. The only thing that I found a little bit odd with the G2 was that the Wi-Fi capability of it kept on dropping out. This could have just been my model, but it is worth noting because that was kind of weird for my situation. Hopefully you guys found this video helpful. If you have any questions at all regarding TVs, put them in the comments below. I'll be sure to answer them. And if I did help you make a buying decision, please consider using my affiliate links in the description. If you enjoyed this video, please hit the like button, consider subscribing, and if you want to keep watching side-by-sides, check out this one right here.